So listeners, Matt and I started chatting before I hit record and then decided that the content was so good that I needed to hit record. So what you're going to hear is us just jumping in and talking about his writing process and his journey, his publishing journey, his writing journey, and just, I mean, he really shares all the knowledge and it's absolutely amazing. So with that, here is Matt, M.A. Wardell, sharing his process for Teacher of the Year. Enjoy the episode.
I started doing the Spicy Saturdays because I was, and still am to a certain degree, but less now that my book is out and people kind of know what they're getting. At the beginning, I was really nervous and anxious and paranoid about someone picking up my book and not knowing how spicy it was. It was like a real fear that I had. Like, and I think some of that is because of my cover, because I have an illustrated cover. So it looks, you know, and the other thing is the type of book that I'm writing. I'm writing a rom-com, and I call it a rom-com, and it is a rom-com. Like I don't think that, I mean, it is, but it's a spicy rom-com. And for us queers, we don't get that spicy in our rom-coms. So I was really nervous about that. And so initially I thought I saw somebody else do it, and it wasn't a rom-com person. It was just a traditional romance person. And I was like, oh, maybe I should do that. That would really give people a real jolt of just how spicy my book is. And so that's how I started it. And would you believe those are some of my well, you probably would believe it. They're some of my most popular posts. I get the most engagement on them. I literally have people telling me that they have bought my book or they want to read my book because of that. And that's not why I started doing it.
No, I love the bits that you share. I'm like, yes, I can't wait.
I also think, okay, so I have this idea, and I've talked to Jay about it, my friend Jay, and she's like, well, let's wait and see, you know, after maybe another book or something. I really think that she and I together could do some kind of like little webinar or course for authors because I mean, we're figuring it out, but we are figuring it out. And I see people do things all the time, and I'm like, oh, why did you do it like that? That's not going to work. And so here's one tip. I'm giving it away like it's free. When I do, sorry, I'm not picking my nose. It's like an itch, which this is a Jewish thing. When your nose is itchy, it means you're going to get money.
Hey, that's another book sold.
I know. I have to check my book sales. So one thing that I see people do often when they do a quote, like even I'm talking about the spicy stuff, but even like just a general quote from the book, it's too much. Instagram is not meant for that. It's meant for, it's really was designed for pictures and images, which is kind of ironic because I don't even really show a picture of my own face on Instagram, but I show art and things like that. But so if you're going to show text, it has to be short. Like to me, a sentence or two, you know, maybe 3 sentences.
Just a taste. And for the spicy stuff, it's like, I'm going to put in a dirty word, like a part of the spice that's like filthy, right? Like that has like one of those words in it that people are looking for. But that's where I see a lot of people go wrong. They post quotes and it's like they take like a picture of half a page of text. Nobody wants to read that. Yeah, and no one's going to. Yeah, they just blow right past it.
They blow right past it.
When I see too much text, I'm like, no, I can't. That's too much.
And it used to be, because I've gone to some like Instagram school things like in my other life, and it used to be that everyone was saying do carousels, like carousel, because it tells the algorithm that people are staying on your content longer and longer and longer. And I don't know how I feel about that anymore. I feel like that day has gone. And I myself find myself, if someone has a carousel, I'm usually like blowing through it.
Well, I think if you're going to do a carousel, like 2, 3 max, but also just do a video instead.
Or make the content short. Like
Mhm.
what I do for my characters is I will put out one character at a time, but I've got 9 or 10 pictures that I've commissioned.
Mhm.
So by the time I'm finished and I've given people all 10, then I'll do a carousel to put them all together.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a wrap up. It's a you know, people have seen it mostly, and it's just really a picture of a character. It's not like I'm asking them to read something.
You're not giving them like a chapter of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so funny because like I can't remember how, but I just like stumbled across both of your. I think I found Jay's profile first, and then yours, and then someone else, and it was just like this group of authors, and y'all kind of just like hit your stride at the same time, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" I was like, "This is amazing!" Like whatever. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I started reaching out to Jay and to you to be on the podcast too, because I was like, oh my God, like whatever you guys are doing it's working. Well,
so here's what I'll tell you, and put this in, right?
Yeah.
Some of it is I think it's like the perfect storm, right? I do think that a big part of it is the marketing and the way that we're, you know, on Instagram and the kind of content that we're giving people and teasing and all of that. That's definitely a piece of the pie. But I also think, especially for me, I think there are other pieces that you can't formulate, right? Like I can tell you what they are, but I don't know that you can replicate it. So some of it is, I think, my book. I think that I, on purpose, wrote a book that doesn't exist. Like I don't want to say it doesn't exist, but it's not a book that I've ever seen, right? The type of, and I'm not talking about the fact that it's a teacher, because there's teacher romances out there, or that it's a Jewish main character, although I don't see many of them.
Yeah,
but I know there's a few. But the big thing that I did was, and I know that this was a question because you sent me some of your questions. You were going to ask me like what kinds of books I read, or I think that was one of the questions. I love rom-coms. I love queer rom-coms, but I also love spice when I read, and it doesn't exist. I remember however many years ago, I read Red, White, and Royal Blue, just like every other gay guy out there, and other people, other queer people too. And I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of spicy, right?" Like I was like, "Ooh, they're having sex at the in the stable, like ooh, spice." And then I started discovering male romance, not rom-coms. And I will say there are some authors who don't market themselves as writing /rom-coms, but their books kind of are rom-com-y. Yeah. Like N.R. Walker is one who I love her. I think she uses she/her pronouns. I hate using pronouns at all because I know I'm always afraid I'm going to use the wrong one, and I don't want to use the wrong one.
I just refer to everyone as they.
Okay, that's what I'll do that too. But N.R. Walker is fantastic. They are, I think, from New Zealand. So like not as, and then the other person that I love that kind of started to open my door a little bit, my mind, I should say, to the idea is Kay Sterling. I don't know if you know Kay Sterling.
Yeah.
Kay is amazing. Now, Kay, I know her pronouns. Kay started with just traditional romance, male romance, you know, just like the angsty, that kind of stuff.
Kind of dark.
Yeah. Everyone's tortured, you know, that kind of thing. But she has this nanny series now. Yes. And those are rom-coms. They are straight up rom-coms, and they're very spicy. And the other person that does it with sapphic rom-com is Ruby Barrett, who is like, so Ruby Barrett is like, she's another person that's kind of like Amy Spalding, who I just want to be her. Like I want to like grow up and be her. I'm probably older than her, but that's neither here nor there. I want to grow up and be her. She is like the coolest queer mom, you know, like you just like I'm like, could you adopt me?
Yeah. You're like, take me too.
So Ruby's book, I read Ruby's book. It's called The Romance Recipe, which I talk about everywhere. Have you read The Romance Recipe?
No, but I've heard of it before.
Oh my God. Okay. The Romance Recipe was a book that I was reading while I was working on Teacher of the Year. And it was the book that I was like, oh, you can have a rom-com that's like cute and fluffy and light and all that and go hard on the sex. Oh, and I mean, that book, honestly, it is one of the hottest books I've ever read. And as I tell my gay friends, no dicks. And it's so hot. Like you're reading it and you're like, okay, there's no dicks, but I am so turned on. What's going on? Am I a lesbian? What's happening? Because Ruby is such a good writer and it's fantastic. But
I'll have to read that one.
So I think part of the reason my book is finding an audience is I looked at books like Red, White, and Royal. That's kind of a hard title to say. Red, White, and Royal Blue. Books like Charm Offensive, which is like a top 5 book for me. I love the Charm Offensive, but I look at the traditional male romance books and those authors, people like Lita Blake, who I love. They're mostly female identifying people who write those books, and they're super spicy. And I'm like, why can't I have both? Like I want both. And so that's why I started to write. I was like, well, then I'm going to do it. But that's also why I was paranoid that people weren't going to get it. And Jay and I had long discussions together, like a long time ago at this part of the process about our covers. Like, do we do an illustrated cover, which is more of a rom-com type of a thing to do? Or do we do like the, half naked torso cover, which is more of the spice, right? And I was like, I really want people to know that my book is a rom-com. Like it is a rom-com. So that's why I went with the illustrated cover. But then I was also paranoid that they were going to get to the sex scenes and be like, this isn't like Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Clutching their pearls.
Yes. And some people have, like, they're like shocked at how explicit it is. But the other thing that I think is happening a little bit is it's opening people's eyes a little bit to how enjoyable it can be to read spice. Because I think I was having this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine who I met in a writing class, and we've become friends, and he actually came up and spent the day and we walked around and everything. And we were talking about, in the gay community, I'm talking about gay men, like cis gay men. There's like 2 kinds of gays. There's like, and I'm not judging either one, I'm just naming it, right? You've got your grinder gays. You know what that is, right? Like you're out there. And then you've got your other gays. I don't know what to call them. They're like the ones who are not on Grindr. Okay. Like the ones who are in a monogamous relationship, or they're just like I don't want to call them the good gays, because that's like that's a judgmental word, but they're like the goody 2-shoe gays.
Yeah.
How about we call them that? And so a lot of goody 2-shoe gays are like reading my book and they're like, oh my gosh, like I've never read, because they don't read traditional male romance.
Yeah.
And so they've never read. And because honestly, my book is spicy. I'm not going to say that it's not, but it's nothing compared to some of these other. I mean, nobody's being whipped or choked or
some of them can get pretty intense,
hardcore, right? Like mine in my book is 2 consenting adults, and there's a lot of like, I myself think like this is something that I enjoy when I read it, and so I put it in my book, and I put it in my second book too. I have like a consent kink. And so that's in my book too, which some people, that's not in a lot of traditional romance. It's just like throwing people down and like having your way with them.
Yes.
And it's like the opposite. It's like constant checking in and like, is this okay? That kind of thing. So that's I know I have ADHD, in case you couldn't tell. I've like gone off on a tangent, but I think that's part of the reason my book is successful, is because, it's like, it's almost like paving its own lane, right? It's like, I call it a steamy queer rom-com. And I honestly don't, except for those nanny books by Kay Sterling, I have never read a queer rom-com that's this steamy. The only other one that came a little bit close, there was a book that came out last year by an author that I love, Roan Parrish. I don't know if you know Roan Parrish.
Mm-mm. I'm like following all these people.
Oh my gosh, Roan
like,
Parrish.
Yes,
okay, so Roan Parrish mostly writes like traditional male romance. That's what they write. But some of their books have veered a little bit more into like rom-com territory. And then last year they had a book come out called The Holiday Trap, which was like a queer take on that movie, The Holiday. I don't know if you know that movie.
Yeah,
where they switch. It's like that, except it's a lesbian and a gay man, and they switch. Ooh, I just hit my microphone.
Lovely. Oh, I'm gonna have to read that one too. My list is growing.
And there's and that book, and Roan Parrish writes steam. But I think for this book, because it was a rom-com, they like scaled back a little bit. There's like one scene for the woman and one scene for the gay guy. And it's hot. The scenes are hot AF, but there's only one of them. And so I was like, come on, And so for my book, I was like, I'm going to make a lot of sex scenes and they're going to be really explicit.
Bring all the steam.
And so people are reading it. The other thing I will say that I think is unique, and this is something that you can't formulate, is the fact that I am a cisgendered gay man writing this kind of book. The books that we've named have all been written by people who are not cisgender gay men. That
was one of the questions as you were talking, I wanted to ask you because I'd recently seen, I feel like there was an article or something came out recently about how a lot of romances are actually written by individuals that identify as female. And I think it was actually a TikTok. Someone was going off on TikTok about it. And how they're essentially appropriating gay culture by writing these romances as females. So I'm curious as to kind of like your thoughts about that.
Well, here's the first thing I'm going to say. I am grateful for those books because I want those books to exist and men aren't writing them. So that's the first thing I want to say. I don't want to trash anyone, throw people under the bus, because that doesn't feel good, right?
No.
But also, I have different feelings about it. I feel like there's different ways to think about it. On the one hand, if you are a person because you said female identifying, and so that's one thing. But then some of these people are. And they're people that I know, and I'm not going to name them because it's not like I'm not outing people, although they're out. It's not like I would be outing anyone, but they're female presenting, but maybe they're non-binary, right? Or they're female presenting and they identify as cisgender female, but they're queer.
Yeah.
They're bi, they're queer, whatever it is. And so to me, there's a little bit of a difference between a queer or a non-binary queer person writing non-binary queer people than a straight woman. But I also, here's what I say about romance and rom-coms especially, but even all romance, they are a form of fantasy. And so if her fantasy is that, then go for it. But I will also tell you, as a person who is a cisgendered gay man, when I read those books, sometimes I cringe a little bit because it comes off as a woman's fantasy of two men together, and it's not very realistic at all. And some of my gay friends and I will joke, we're like, that would ever happen. But also it's a fantasy, right? It's not reality. Romance is a fantasy. The whole thing is a fantasy. So I just feel like people should write the books that they want to write, and people should read the books they want to read. And it makes my heart a little sad that there aren't more men doing it, but there are, Tal Bauer, although he doesn't really write rom-coms. It's more like traditional. The one man who is a cisgendered man that's pretty popular that writes them is Timothy Janofsky. And he's like a baby. I think he's like 26 or something. He's like this cutest little.
So young.
So he's like a total baby. He writes queer rom-coms, and he's like very adamant about writing rom-coms. But the books that he's put out so far are, I would call them low spice.
Okay.
He's traditionally published, and maybe that has something to do with it too.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, so, because I know this is one of your questions too, like talk about your publishing journey or something like that. When I finished Teacher of the Year, and I was at this place where I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, did I want to try to query and get an agent? Did I want to self-publish? Like, I wasn't really sure. And actually, I don't want to tell her story because she'll be on your podcast. But Jay was in the same boat. Like, we were both kind of like, what do we do? What, like maybe we should do this. And she was actually going to query. Like, that's what she was going to do. And I was like, not really sure. And honestly, a lot of it came from a place of not seeing my type of book in traditional publishing.
Yeah.
I don't see spicy queer rom-com with two men in traditional publishing. I'd seen Ruby's book, which was like one book, and it's sapphic. And I do think it matters that it's two women as opposed to two men. And so I was like, my book is, and the other thing about my book that's a little bit different, and I don't want to blanketly say every book is like this, but a lot of the traditional male-male romance, the men in those books, to me, as a gay man, come off as straight men who sleep with men. Yeah. They're hockey players. Oh my God, if there's another fucking hockey book. Am I allowed to curse?
They're so hot right now. Everyone's
it's like the hottest thing. I was like, maybe I should write a hockey book. And I was like, except there's nothing gay about hockey. So no. Like hockey, or they're like police officers or, FBI agents, or like they're always something like hyper masculine, right? Like it's hyper masculine. There's like never anyone who's like actually gay. Like, I mean, not to say that you could be, there's lots of ways to be gay. I mean, but like, I want a book with a gay guy who loves RuPaul's Drag Race and Lady Gaga and like me and all my friends and every fucking gay guy I know practically. They don't get written a whole lot. I don't want to say ever. I will say Kay Sterling does that. Like the gays in those nanny books, like they're fucking nannies. They're gay, And Timothy does that too in his books too. His gay characters are very gay. But so I was paranoid. I was like, oh, my book is like my God, he's a kindergarten teacher. There's like scenes with children, I'm like, no one's going to want that. And so I was like, and it's steamy, like really steamy. And it's gay sex written by a gay man, which at the time I didn't realize this apparently is different when it's written by a man, because I've gotten that comment from a lot of people. So I was like, nobody will ever want this. And so I was just like, screw it. At that point, I had paid for a developmental editor myself. I had also paid for a regular editor because in my brain, I was like, I thought before I could query, I needed to have like a perfectly finished manuscript because I was so paranoid about all the things that I just mentioned. So I was in the tank for, some money already. So I was like, well, I need to pay a designer to do the cover, and I would have to do some marketing and pay for like, books to ARCs to send to people and things like that. So I've already spent money. Maybe I should just spend a little bit more and do it myself and keep all the money, because let me tell you something else that people don't want to talk about. Traditionally published authors don't make a lot of money.
No.
Unless you're Casey McQuiston or, TJ Klune, or I'm trying to think of like who the like famous people are. Like, unless you're, what's his name? Adam Silvera and Becky Albertelli, now Robbie Couch. Like, those people are making bank. Yeah. But most people, they're like the pennies. Sliver. Most people are not making a lot of money. I mean, Ruby Barrett's probably going to take a restraining order out of me because she knows I'm like obsessed with her. But she did a reel a couple of weeks ago, and she said she wanted to explain this to people, and I'm going to try to paraphrase what she said, but she did it so much better. And so go on her Instagram, and I bet it's on there. But basically she was like, imagine that you're an author and you're trying to get a deal and all these things, and you get an agent and they sell your book. Like, all the things happen that don't always happen, but let's just imagine that they do. And you get a book deal for $100,000. Which sounds like a lot of money. Like, I mean, that's how much you used to win on Drag Race. If you won Drag Race, $100,000. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. And she broke down how that money actually would look. And so she's like, first you have to pay your agent 15%. So you're down to 85. I don't do math so well, but this math I can do. And so you're down to 85. Then you have to pay taxes. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So then you're down to, let's say, even just say 70, just to make it a round number, although I'm sure it would be less than that. So now you've got $70,000. But guess what? They don't write you a check for $70,000. They pay it to you in 3 to 4 installments over months and months and months. She explained there's like, when you deliver the manuscript, you get the first payment. When your book comes out, you get the next payment. When you hit a certain benchmark, you get the next payment. And there are months in between that. So if you take $60,000 to $70,000 and divide it by 4, that's $20,000. And every so many months, she said, basically what she says is, it's not enough money to live off of.
No, there's no way to live off of that.
And that's why she has another job. And that's why most authors have another job. Now, if you are lucky and you write a book like Red, White, and Royal Blue or The Charm Offensive, then you become your publisher's darling. But that's not going to happen for most people.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. And the thing is, it is a lot of work, but I get all the money.
Yes.
Like, every time a book sells, I mean, yes, like Amazon takes their little piece of the pie, but they don't take it. I mean, I wish they took less, like, because of how big they are and all that. But compared to a traditional publisher, it's no contest.
Do you have your book in other, because I know sometimes when it comes to like self-publishing, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I'll just put it up on Amazon and that'll be where it's sold. But there are ways to get it into like actual bookstores through distribution and stuff. So did you do that? I
have that too. So for the way, and Jay and I talked about all of this, we could do it in our webinar, but the way that you get the best bang for your buck, as far as like give yourself the potential to make the most money, is Amazon requires you to be exclusive with your ebook. So like if you want to read Teacher of the Year on a digital, like a Kindle or something, the only place to do it is Amazon. And the reason that you do that is because they give you a higher royalty if you go exclusive with them, and you can put your book into Kindle Unlimited. And as an indie author, as a newer author, I didn't want to do Kindle Unlimited. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you for an hour just on Kindle Unlimited. I was like, when I did the calculation and I found out that basically if somebody read my whole book on Kindle Unlimited, I think I make $1.50.
Yeah.
I was like, hell no. Why would I do that? Make them buy the book. And a woman who I have become friends with, who is a romance author who lives where I live, like we live in the same town, and we've had coffee and gotten together a few times. And she writes straight traditional romance, but she's lovely and has been very helpful to me, like as a mentor. She was like, Matt, you gotta do Kindle Unlimited. And she showed me like the little graph from Amazon, and basically she makes most of her money from Kindle Unlimited. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, a month out of my book being like out, published, whatever, I'm making more money from Kindle Unlimited every day than I make from selling books. And I'm selling books. So it's not that I'm not selling any books. It's just more people are reading on Kindle Unlimited. Like I'm close to, I'm going to hit 1 million page reads probably within another month. I'm like almost at 650,000 page reads.
It like gives me goosebumps. It's so amazing.
I don't understand it because I keep thinking, well, everybody who wants to read my book has read it. And then someone's like, Matt, there are 150 million people on Kindle Unlimited. I'm like, okay. So for ebook, yes, Amazon exclusive, but paperback, they don't require that. So my paperback, obviously you can buy it on Amazon, but I also have it on Ingram Spark, which I don't love them. Like the interface, like the website, it's very archaic and clunky, but they kind of have a monopoly. And so basically, if you want your book to be in bookstores, if you want your book to be in libraries, and for me, part of my marketing plan, I don't guess I would call it that, was I wanted my book to be available everywhere. Like I wanted queer people in Kansas to be able to go to that queer bookstore and get my book. Even if they don't carry it, they could say, do you have that book Teacher of the Year? And they could go on their little computer and they could say, I'll order it for you. One thing I will also tell people, because I was told this wrong, when you set up your book in Ingram, they make you set a discount for bookstores, like because no bookstore will buy your book at the full price because they have to pay their people and their bills and all that. And what they tell you is that in order for bookstores to buy your book, you have to set your discount to 55%.
Okay. Okay.
It's a lot. So first of all, you have to pay to print the book, and then they take 55% off. My royalty was like $1.17.
Yeah, it was like you get like nothing.
I was like, what's the point? And I was like, well, I guess I'm in bookstores. And then I talked to some people, and what I learned was that 55% is if you want your book in Walmart, Target, like the big stores. I could give a rat's ass. Walmart isn't going to carry my book. Trust and believe. Like it is not a book for Walmart or Target. So small independent bookstores, they require a 40% discount. So I changed that, and then the royalties go up. They're still less than Amazon, but they're close. It's like just under $4 per book. Okay. And I can live with that. Like that that's fair to me. I don't mind making a little less per book so that I can support independent bookstores. And the other thing I will tell you that feels awesome is so many people have told me that they've read my book from the library. Yep. And a friend of mine on Instagram who is a librarian, she's like, Matt, we have like 4 copies of your book because it's in such heavy rotation. I was like, really? So, I mean, you don't make money when someone reads your book from the library. Like you only make the one sale of the library buying it. But like it's marketing because those people read my book and then maybe they tell a friend and maybe somebody else buys it. And so the number one thing I tell indie people is that you have to stop thinking like an indie author and you have to start thinking like a traditional publisher, not a published author, a traditionally published author, a publisher. And so like, here's another example. Look, I don't even need to do a webinar. I'm telling you everything. I know. I love it. I'm like, yes, give me all the information. So here's another thing. So Jay and I, when we started, the thing about Jay and I that was really nice is that, oh my gosh, I totally have bedhead. We kind of started at the same time. Like we were, her book came out, I think 2 weeks before mine. And we actually planned that on purpose, like that we could stagger our releases a little bit. And when we started doing the whole arc thing, like we're not going to do more than 50 arcs because every time you give a book to someone, you're killing a sale, right? Like if I send you my book for free, then you're not going to buy it. Wrong. So that's what we did at the beginning. I had a sign up and people could sign up. And when I had 50 people, I said, I'm full. I'm not sending any more books out. I'm done. And then I had like this realization. I'm like, why? And this is where it's helpful that I'm friends with some authors who are traditionally published. When you go on NetGalley, how many copies of the book do they give people? Hundreds. Like they do set a limit, but their limit is usually like 300, 400, 500, 600. Hundreds. Because what they know, and we kind of know as indie people, but they have like way more data than we do, obviously, is that statistically, for every 10 people who read your book, 3 are going to actually do something. They're going to write a review. They're going to do an Instagram post. They're going to do something. 3 out of 10. What is that? 33% maybe? Look at me doing math.
I know. Did you see my face to go like blank? I was like, ooh, math. Nope.
I think it's like about 30%. So if you only let 50 people read your book, which is what we did at first, we were like, how come only, I don't remember what the number was, but like 15 people have reviewed my book, but I've sent it. And we were like pissed, like all these people, because it's a numbers game. Yeah. And if you want to play the game, you got to play the game. And the game is numbers. The more people that read your book, the more people, the bigger number of people that will engage and tell a friend, make an Instagram, make a TikTok, or hopefully write a review on Goodreads or Amazon, something like that. And so when I had that shift in my brain, I said, the floodgates are open. And basically, I sent my book to anyone who wanted it. If you wanted my book, and physical books, I didn't do it quite as much because that costs money, but I did send a lot of physical books. If you were a person on Instagram and you have somewhat of a following that is engaged, and you're talking about books that are like my book, which again, my book isn't really like any other book, but if I was like, oh, this person loves them some Red, White, and Royal Blue, and oh, they're a male romance reader. Yes. What's your address? I will mail you a book. And it costs money. And that's the thing too, that people have to know. Like,
yeah, you're spending money.
I'm spending money. Like this isn't free. Instagram is free, but every time you mail a book to someone, it's about $9, right? To print the book and to ship the book costs about $4.50 each. So it's like $9 to mail a book to someone. And I probably mailed, between 50 and 75, maybe even closer to 100. I stopped counting because I didn't want to really even know myself. But that's a lot of money, right? Like it adds up. If I sent 100 books and it's $9, that's $900. But the thing is, so I'll tell you, I had a conversation with my husband about when I was making this decision to self-publish. I was like, I've spent this much money on a developmental editor. I've spent this much money on this. And then it's going to cost money to market this too. And he's like, well, first he said, let me read your book, because I hadn't let him. I had not let him read it. He hadn't read it because I wouldn't let him. And so he read the book and he was like, okay, this is a really good book. We need to put the gas in the tank, right? Like the car, you can have the most beautiful car in the world, but if you don't put gas in the tank, it ain't gonna move. So you got to put gas in the tank. And so we sat down and we made a budget and we said, we're going to spend this much money. It was $1,500, which is not, I mean, let me tell you, how much money do you think they just spent to market The Celebrants? With Stephen Rowley, who's literally flying all over the country, and he's the Today Show book of the month or whatever, summer, I don't know what it is. You pay for that, right? Like that doesn't happen for free, right? And so to me, $1,500 with the amount of money I had already spent, I was like, it's like what I wanted to be able to say that I did everything I could, that I tried everything I could to make this book a success and to get people to read it. But ultimately, and this is the part people probably don't want to hear, it's the book, right? Like Jay and I have had conversations about this. So Jay and I, this is a place where we don't agree. Like she has one opinion, she has one train of thought, and I have a different one. I am not a fan of Street Team, which a lot of people love. Like a lot of people have street teams. It's like a thing that they do. It just to me, it felt a little inorganic, for lack of a better word. Like I'm gonna make you do things. Like here, I'm gonna give you an image. Please everyone share this image because I gave it to you and I told you to do it. I don't know. I don't like being told what to do. So I didn't want to tell other people what to do. So she's like, well, then what are you gonna do? And I was like, I want an organic street team. I want people to read my book and think it's so fucking awesome that they're making graphics, they're making TikToks, they're sharing my shit. When I posted the cover for my second book, over 1,000 people liked it. And I don't even know how many people shared it, but I didn't tell anyone to do it. They're just doing it on their own. But you can't make people do it. So, you know, a street team maybe isn't a bad thing. I don't know. Also, I don't have the energy or the time or the organization's skills to do a street team because I think you have to have all those things.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought up like the costs, because I think that's something else that a lot of indie authors, they go into writing without realizing, like, if you want your book to be successful, you are going to have to spend money, and not like a little bit. Like,
so I'm very transparent. I'll tell you about my costs. So for my book, like to get Teacher of the Year, for the developmental edit, for my regular editor, for the cover, and for the marketing, it was probably about, but I don't know because I don't have a tally and everything, but I would guess it was between $4,000 and $5,000, which I'm told is not that much.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a good amount for like an indie author to spend.
Yeah. And so what happens,
which is a lot for us sometimes.
Well, I mean, so I am privileged. I'm lucky that my job that I do for like my real job is I have a business and I can ramp up or scale down. And so what I did was I ramped up, and people who know me know that like from January to April of this year, I was not home. Every week I was on a plane traveling somewhere, and I don't normally do that. So I had ramped up my business because I wanted to put gas in the car and I needed to make more money. And so I'm lucky that I was able to do that. I'm also lucky that I'm married, right? So I have two incomes in my home. My income isn't the only income that that pays bills, right? So, and that's a privilege, right? And I know that a lot of people want to traditionally publish because they don't want to spend a dime. They want someone else to spend. But what I want people to know is that I know, like, unless you are a golden child, and you might be, like, good luck. I mean, who wouldn't want to be the golden child? But they're few and far between, like they're rare. Unless you are the golden child, you still are going to spend money. Because if you want your book to do well, I know traditionally published authors who commission their own art. They pay for it themselves. If they do a tour, they pay for it. They're paying for the everything. And it's like, and then the publisher takes all the money. Yeah. And so I was like, I don't know. I will tell you, this is like after the fact, after my book is out, after it's doing well. Of course, now the lions start circling because they smell money. I have signed with an agent, but not a traditionally published agent. I like that kind of an agent. I signed with an agent that specializes in, what do they call it? Like sub rights, I think it's called. So this is a person who will help me sell the book to a publisher overseas to be translated. Or if anyone ever wanted to make a movie or a TV show, they would help me with that. Like the types of things that I'm not able to do on my own. Yeah. If I wanted to sell the audio rights, which I'm not, I'm doing it myself. And I can talk about why I'm doing that. It's all about money, right? It costs money, but you make more money if you do it yourself. It's just like anything else. But if I wanted to sell the audio rights, they would help me with that. So they're not trying to sell my books to traditional publishers. That's not what this agent does. They do a lot of indie authors have this agency. This is what they do. They work with indie authors to sell these types of rights, because if what I see, like when I go into the thing on Amazon and you drilled, like my book is selling all over the world. Like it's not just in the United States. And so I'm like, the number 2 place that my book is sold is Germany. Really? Which I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, whatever. Yeah, that's awesome. And so maybe maybe if it was translated into German, it could sell even more, right? So this is what this person will do. Why was I talking about this? Oh, traditionally published. So I think some people are just like, well, I don't have the money, so I'm just going to query and all of that. But my thing was like, I was able to come up with that money over a few, over time of working more. And I have the ability to do that with the type of work that I do. Now I'm in a place where I'm starting to make money from my book. So I'm going to scale down so that I can spend more time writing, but I'm not quitting because it's not enough. It's not enough yet. Maybe it will be someday. I don't know. But also I'm an impatient person. Like the idea of querying and then waiting to have my book on submission and then waiting for my book to be published, Teacher of the Year would still not, nobody would even have read it.
Could be years before.
Years.
Yeah. I think that's another thing a lot of people don't realize is like the whole publishing process when you go traditionally can take years.
And so what's interesting is that, again, I'm trying to find this middle ground between tradition. Like I'm trying to act a little bit more like a traditional publisher, but I'm not. I'm me. I'm just an independent person. I think I'm finding readers who don't read a lot of indie books. Like they read a lot of traditionally published books. And so when I said my next book's coming out in October, they were like, what? Like this book just came out and you have another book coming out. And meanwhile, Jay has 4 books coming out before the end of the year.
Wild. It's wild.
So, and there are other people. I mean, Kay Sterling, the woman who writes the nanny books, she's told me like she's had years where she's put out 8, 9, 10 books in a year. Now, personally, my writing process, because I have a process, I couldn't do it. It's just not how my brain works. It's not how I write. Jay, I happen to know, and she will be like, oh no, like she doesn't want to hear it, but it's true. Jay writes almost a final draft. Like her first draft is almost a final draft. Like there's very little revising and editing that needs to happen.
Amazing.
I mean, some obviously, but yeah, that's just how she writes. She also writes on her phone, which I still don't understand how she does that.
I have met a couple people that do that and it blows my mind. I'm like, how do you do that?
I couldn't do it. Where I write a first draft and it's like, oh my God, this is so horrible. Nobody will ever want to read this. It's terrible. Why did I ever think I could write a book? It's rotten. And then you get Teacher of the Year, right? But it's like a journey.
Yeah. So I want to ask something about your writing process, because like you said, you have your own business. Do you set time aside every day to write, or like, how do you find that time?
So I do it a few different ways. Sometimes if I'm busy, like if I have a lot of work going on, what I try to do is set a time. And I'm like a chronically early person. Like I am up by 5 o'clock in the morning. Wow. And so usually what I would do is I would write from like 5 to 7, 5 to 7:30. Then I stop. I go take a walk. I exercise. I come home. I take a shower, and I start my day job. I start my job. That's one way that I do it. But that's how I did. That's pretty much how I wrote Teacher of the Year. But with this book, I've started to do it a little bit differently, where because I'm starting to scale back, the big thing that I'm scaling back with my job requires a lot of travel. And I've started to say to people, I'm not traveling anymore. So you can have me virtually or find somebody else. And most people still want me virtually, which is really nice. So what I'm trying to do now is have like days where I'm doing my job and days where I'm not doing my job and I can write. So like, here's an example. So right now my book is with someone for a developmental edit for like the final thing. And I'm supposed to get it back, I think on Friday of this week. And I'm working this week. I have like stuff almost every day. And then for the next 2 weeks, I block them out. I did not schedule anything so that I can take the developmental edit, because my regular editor is taking it the first week of July. So I have 2 weeks to finish. And so I was like, well, maybe if I don't work, like if I don't have my other job and all I do for 2 weeks is focus on that, I probably could get it done. So I was like, well, then that's what I'm going to do. And again, I have the luxury of doing that. I don't have a 9-to-5 job that I have to go into an office, that kind of a thing. Same thing, like, so the second book comes out in October. So I said to myself, I'm not traveling in October. Like for work, I'm not traveling. I need to be home. I need to be able to be marketing and doing things with, like getting. And so this is when I started having people say, well, wanting me to work. And I was like, I said, I can do it virtually. So I have a couple of virtual jobs in October, but I'm not leaving. I'm not flying anywhere. And the other thing, when I did travel a lot, I wrote in airports a lot. I am a type of person, like I like having like chaos around me.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Airport is really chaotic. And so this is like a funny story. I think I might have told somebody this once. One time last year when I was writing Teacher of the Year, my flight was canceled and it was a late flight. And so I ended up having to spend the night in the airport because the flight out was so early. I couldn't even go to a hotel or anything. So I spent the night in the airport and I was like, well, I'm not going to sleep. Like there's nowhere to sleep really, like on the floor, but I didn't want to do that. And plus I was like, I don't know. I didn't feel safe sleeping with all my stuff and everything. So anyway, I wrote like a lot. I don't even remember. It was like 3,000 or 4,000 words, including a sex scene in the airport overnight on no sleep because I had worked all day. And I was working all day and went right to the airport, and so I was tired. And I just bought a couple of like sodas and I wrote all night. So I just make it work.
That's amazing. That's what I was gonna say. I think if it's something that you're like really passionate about, you'll figure it out. Yeah. You'll find a way.
I get also my part of my process, which I think is part of my ADHD a little bit, is I get to a point with a book where I start to become a little bit obsessed with it. Like it's maybe not even healthy. And it's like, I get like the horse with the blinders on, it's like all I can think about. I even start like my dreams are about the characters and the story and things like that. And so then it just becomes like the other thing that I always tell people, and they're like, they look at me like I have 10 heads. I don't watch a lot of television. And when you stop watching TV, you find a lot of time.
Yeah. It opens up your entire. I recently, in the last, 2 or 3 years, stopped watching as much TV, and I was like, what do I do with myself now?
Right. That's what you do.
Exactly.
I mean, people are like, well, you don't watch any TV? And I'm like, okay, I still watch RuPaul's Drag Race. But like, other than that, I mean, not a whole lot. Like there's a few shows that I like that, but it's like there's because I don't have television, like cable television. So like Netflix, if they have a new series of something, then I just watch it in a day and it's done.
Yeah. You don't have to think about it anymore.
But mostly I don't watch a lot of television. And when I'm really in the writing place, I don't read a lot either.
Yeah.
I just write. And if I'm not writing, I'm just like sleeping or petting my cat or taking a walk or something like that.
Do you work on more than one project at a time, or do you just focus on like your one project until it's completely finished and then move on to the next one?
So pretty much one, but right now I've been waiting for these developmental edits and I've been kind of like pulling my hair out, like wanting to do something. So I have started outlining my next book, but I'm not going to start writing it because I don't want to do that. But I thought, well, might as well start the outline because I have the idea in my head sort of, but I have to get all the kinks out. So I've been doing a little bit of that, but I don't know. Like to me, it's like, I want to have like one. This is and this is going to be the first time, and Jay and I have talked about this because it's like everything was about book one, Teacher of the Year. It's like, okay, well now Teacher of the Year is out, but now I have another book. Yeah. Do I not market and promote Teacher of the Year? do I like, I don't even, and so we're just kind of like figuring it out. I'm trying to do like a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because people are excited about the second book and you want to capture that excitement. Right. But I also want people to buy the book that they can actually buy.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that when you have, because that's something I'll have to think about as well.
Yeah.
when I eventually publish mine. But yeah, when you have more than one, what's the balance?
Right. And also like, this is where, again, like I do look at traditionally published authors and see like how they're doing it or how their publisher's doing it. But I also know that that's not me. So I want to take parts that I can take and leave what I don't like. But, I mean, cover reveal, right? Like I just did my cover reveal last week and it's June and the book doesn't come out till October, which feels like a long time. But also I saw a traditionally published author and I can't think of their name. The name is escaping me. And they revealed their cover like a month before me and their book comes out in 2024.
Oh, wow.
Like in February of 2024. So it's like almost a year. So it's like, I'm just doing a few months. Like that's like, but then I want to share the characters. I want to start up with the Spicy Saturdays again. But then also like, you don't want to give away your whole book. Mm-hmm. So it's like a balance of like, how do you do it? And I don't know the answer. I mean, a lot of it is just figuring it out as I go.
Yeah. Oh, you're doing such an amazing job though.
This is this is where it's nice to have someone like a friend like Jay who's also doing it. Mm-hmm. And we can like ask each other things and like, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? Or should I do it this way? Or should I do it now? Or just to have somebody else who's in a similar situation as you, even though our books are very different, mm-hmm. We're still kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah. If you had to give, I guess, like one piece of advice, not that, I mean, you've given so much already in this podcast, like I feel bad asking for more, but if you had to give like a indie author who's looking to publish a piece of advice, what would it be?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that like the big lesson that I've learned from the whole thing of when I started to where I am now is to be true to what you want to do, right? Like the book you want to write, be true to the voice that you want to have and what you want to say and who you want it to be for. And don't let external forces, whether it's, other people telling you or even your own, saboteur saying like, oh no, because I had that too. Just be true. And I will tell you, so all the things that I was afraid of with Teacher of the Year, like it's too gay, it's too Jewish, it's too filthy, like spicy and all that. But I kind of worked through it. In the second book, I have just thrown all that out to like thrown caution to the wind. It's gayer, it's more Jewish, it's more filthy. Because now I'm like, oh, people actually like that.
Yeah. You can lean fully in.
And now I have other things I'm afraid of. So then I was really trying to like not give the finger to traditional publishing, but a little bit. I was like, I'm going to make one of my characters. He's not going to be just gay. He's going to be like hyper femme, because I have friends like that.
Yeah.
Guys who when they call to order a pizza, they think it's a woman. Mm-hmm. Guys who wear makeup and nail polish and sparkly, and they're like they're not trans, they're just feminine guys.
Yeah.
Like those guys exist, but you don't read about them.
No.
Because it's not a woman's fantasy.
Yeah. I'm just dying for the inclusivity that you're bringing. Like it's
well, so I'm a little nervous. I'm like, God, maybe people won't like this. And then the other guy, I was like, you know what else I never see? Big fat guys. And I mean, I see them all the time, like walking around and like in the world, but you never see them. Everyone has a 6-pack abs and pecs and all of this. And like, I was like, what if I had these two characters and they fell for each other? And so that's what I did. And part of me thinks like maybe it won't be as successful because of that, but also I don't want to say I don't care, because I do care, because you want to be successful. You want to make money. That's the whole point, right? The more successful your book is, the more money you make, the more books you can write, the more, because you funnel your money into your as an indie author, you are a business.
Yeah.
It's you, unless you get really, big and you start having like assistants and things like that. But it's you're the business. And so, like the thing with the audiobook, I had to make a decision. These companies will buy the rights to your book. They see how well it's selling, and they're like, hell yeah, we want on that gravy train. So let us buy the right to your book. They'll pay for everything. They'll hire and produce the audiobook, and then you get 10%.
Yeah.
Which is nothing. Or you can hire someone to do the acting and producing, and then you get all of the royalties. But you have to have the money to do that. And so a lot of people were like, well, where's the audiobook? Why didn't you do an audiobook? And the thing was, I was waiting to see if people wanted to read the book, and also to see how much money I would make. And now, a month out, I'm like, oh my God, people really do want to read this book. Oh my gosh, I'm making money. So I'm taking that money and I'm investing it in an audiobook, which hopefully will make more money, so that I can invest it in the next audiobook, right? Like, I'm not trying to get rich. I'm just trying to support all the expenses that we've been talking about, right? So that I don't have to work more at my other job.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's a numbers game in that way as well. Like, not just because you referred to,
But what I will tell people is, write the book you want to write. Like, I had some people tell me, who are friends, who are, some of them are traditionally published authors, that said things like, nobody wants to read a spicy rom-com about two men written by a man. Nobody will read that. The publishers won't touch it. And I was like, oh, well, what the hell am I going to do then? Like, and I've even had, this is a person who's a dear friend of mine, and she's actually an indie author, very successful, and we've become very good friends. And she read my book and she's like, Matt, you should traditionally publish, like, your book, like, a publisher would want this. You should totally do this. And then before I could say anything, she goes, but you'd have to tone it down. I don't want to tone it down.
Yeah.
So I tell people, write the book you want to write. That's the beauty of being an indie author. You can put out anything you want.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell you. No one's going to tell you. I mean, the readers will tell you.
Yes, they will.
If they don't like it. And the other advice I'll tell people, because everyone tells me this, is Goodreads is not a place for authors. And I learned that lesson the hard way.
Oh, no.
My husband, that website has been blocked on our network in my house because I'm not allowed to go on. And I haven't been on Goodreads in weeks. And it's honestly the best thing for my mental health. I don't need to go on and hear what people think about my book, right? You go on Instagram and people tag you if they liked your book. And it's not about avoiding criticism. The thing is, I criticize myself enough. I don't need to hear mean reviews, right? And I'm talking, some people can be really mean, So it's just better not to go. I mean, at the beginning, when you first put your book out and only 20 or 30 people have it, then I think it's fine to go look, and you need to pull quotes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at this point, like, once you hit a certain, like, I think I just passed 800 ratings on Goodreads or something. Once you pass, I would say even like 100, it's not a place for you to be anymore.
That's good advice. Because I would be in there all the time being like, what do people say?
Yeah, no. Because people, honestly, people can have their opinion. I mean, obviously, you put the book out, people can say whatever they want about it. But for me, and I know for a lot of authors, not everyone. I have some friends who are like, nope, I go on Goodreads every day and I read everything and it doesn't even bother me. But for me, it really bothers me. It's hurtful.
Yeah.
And so I am a sensitive gay boy, right? Like, who was bullied his whole life, not his whole life, but like in school. And like, I don't deal well with mean girls. Sorry, but they're all women, like that are doing that on Goodreads, to me anyway. I don't deal well with that. Like the mean stuff. It's like I have my own issues around that, which I talk to my therapist about. So the best thing for me is just not to see it. It's not for me. And if I really need to know something, like I need to know a number or something, I have a friend, Jay, and she will go on and she will tell me. I don't need to go. It's like you have to protect because honestly, I've had moments, and I know some other authors that I've talked to who have said the same thing, where I've been like, gosh, maybe I shouldn't write anymore. Like maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Like maybe I suck. And that is not that's not healthy.
That's definitely I had a moment last night actually where I was like, oh my God, like what if I put my book out and just everybody hates it? Well, and that's totally a possibility.
It is possible, but it probably is not. I mean, here's the other thing that this friend of mine who is an indie author said to me. I guess I should say her pen name is A.M. Johnson. She writes male romance, like I would call it more traditional romance. She said two things to me that are like so powerful. I'm gonna tell you both of them. One of the things she said to me was when I got a really bad review and it was like crushing my soul. I mean, when I say bad, the person used GIFs. I didn't even know you could use GIFs in a Goodreads review, but apparently you can. Like, to react because it was because they hated it so much. Anyway, she said, first thing she said to me was, "Who did you write this book for? Like, when you wrote this book, who was it for?" And I said, "Well, it's for queer people, it's for teachers, it's for Jewish people. Like some people might tick one box, some people might tick two, some people might tick all three. But that was my intention." And she said, "And how do those people like your book?" Yeah. She's like, "Your book isn't for everyone, but because it's buzzy and people are talking about it, people want to read it. And some people are going to read it and it's not for them. You didn't write a book for some of these people, like however they identify. It's not one of the things that you just said." So I was like, yeah, you're right. And then the other thing she said to me, she said, when you write a book, it's like a Jackson Pollock, the artist, Jackson Pollock. She said, some people are going to look at it and they're going to see just paint splattered on a canvas. And some people are going to look at it and see a work of art. And you have no control over what they see. But just know that some people do see a work of art, and that's where you want to put your focus. So both of those things that she said to me, she's way smarter than me, and she's written like 20 books or something. Oh, wow. So she has a lot of experience, and she was just nominated for a Lammy too, but she didn't win because apparently only traditionally published authors have won. That's what she. Of course. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's like a fact or if it's just a coincidence or whatever. But it's an honor just to be nominated, and it is an honor. Yeah, that's amazing. It's you gotta protect yourself. Like if you're a person, I have another friend who's like, she has no problem reading these people just trash her books. It really, really impacts me. Like it like prevents me from sleeping. Like, yeah, I could have 100 reviews that say that my book changed their life. People telling me they've never seen a gay Jewish person before and they feel seen, the Yiddish, whatever, like just people glowing about my book. But one person says something bad about my book and that's what I focus on. Yeah. And so it's better for me just to stay away.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So I could literally talk to you forever.
I know we have to go.
But we got to wrap it up, unfortunately. So, I mean, I can't thank you enough for being on, honestly.
Oh, my pleasure.
Like I said, I could sit here and just pick your brain about writing and listen to you talk for hours and hours and hours. So yeah, thank you again for being on and God, just sharing all of your knowledge. I feel like I've learned so much in the last hour that is going to help me with my own writing journey. So thank you for that so much. Where can folks find you on the interwebs?
If you go to my website, which is mawardell.com, you can find me my Instagram, I think my Twitter, I will be honest, I'm not very good at Twitter. It's like, I'm like, I know it's like we're not supposed to, but like some people still do it. So like every once in a while, I'm like, oh, post on Twitter. And I have a Facebook page too, but I don't remember what it is. If you just type M.A. Wardell, there's like nobody else. I'm on TikTok too, although I never do it. I like never do it. I only joined TikTok because someone told me you have to have a TikTok so you can go on and see everybody else talking about you. And then people can tag you. And then when they go to your page, it has your website. So I do have a TikTok. And people do talk about my book on TikTok, which is so cool. I was like, it's like free marketing, right?
Yes, you're part of Book Talk. That's awesome.
And I'm like, how did you find my book? And I was like, I don't know. I don't care. They're talking about it. And the other thing I tell people, if you're comfortable with spice, because I know not everybody is, people love spice. So put a little spice in your book and then people will eat it up. They're like, they love it.
And then I want to encourage everyone, like when you go to Matt's website, also sign up for his mailing list. Yes. Super important. And also you send out like super cute. I don't know. I love your whole like layout that you have for your emails.
Oh, you do?
I think it's adorable. I'm like, oh, it's like so well thought out.
It's just, it's not well thought out, but thank you for thinking
it looks like it is.
It's a template like that the website comes with all that and you just pick a template. And because I don't know anything about, I was like, I'll just do this. And you just plop things in.
Yeah. It looks great.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Wix.
Yeah, there you go. It's a great way to stay up to date on what Matt's working on.
Yeah. And I will also because that's another thing. I'm like, what do I do with my newsletter? I don't want to be sending an email every week because I don't have time for that. And plus nobody wants that.
Yeah.
But I try to do things like when it's time to sign up for ARCs, I will send that to my email list first. And let me tell you, when I just put that in my story on Instagram, here's a marketing tip. I was like, because when I did the cover reveal, people were like, when can we sign up for an ARC? I was like, well, people on my newsletter will find out first. I had like 75 people sign up for my newsletter because they want the ARC. So, you can use your one to feed the other and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a great, I don't know. I'm a huge advocate for like mailing lists in general. I'm like, everyone should have them because if Facebook, Instagram, everything goes away, you still have email. So
that's right.
And again, I can't thank you enough, honestly.
Oh, my pleasure.
This has been wonderful. And I will include all of Matt's information in the episode description so you can find it super easy. I wanted to thank Matt again for being on, and also thank you, the listener, for tuning in. If you have questions or comments, you can email me at funfriendspodcast@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram at funwithfriendspodcast, and we will answer your questions on a future episode of the podcast. If you would like to have questions for Matt or send Matt questions, definitely do it.
Yeah, DMA, just slide into my DMs. I'm pretty good. I that's another marketing tip. I'll give you another free one. Like, you have to engage with people, right? Like if people send you a DM, like at least give them like a heart or like, something, or say thank you, or, oh my gosh, thanks for reading. Like,
and comments as well, right? Like, if people comment on your stuff, you got to get in there and be like, yes, thank you.
Because people, I have heard people say things without naming anyone, like they don't name them. The people say like some authors aren't very friendly, or and it's like, nobody wants. I don't want anyone saying that about me.
Exactly. I want to be the friendliest.
Yeah.
And last thing, listeners, be sure to like, rate, and review the podcast. And with that, get out there, try something new, and have some fucking fun. All right. Goodbye.